This is Cast of Wonders, the young adult fiction podcast featuring stories of the fantastic. Welcome. Episode 604. I'm Catherine Inskip, your editor and host. Every year in September, Cast of Wonders celebrates Banned Books Week, an annual international event celebrating the freedom to read and raising awareness of the immense social value of free and open access to information. In the last few years, we've seen countless attempts to silence the voices of others through warfare, injustice, and exclusion. Privileged minority casually perpetuate discrimination through ignorance and apathy, or with actions that rarely rise above thoughts and prayers in their effectiveness. We might not be silencing others ourselves, but if that silence isn't challenged, are we truly any better or different? Isabel J. Kim's story in February's Clarkesworld, Why Don't We Just Kill the Kid in the Omelas Hole, shone a spotlight on the moral culpability of those who stand silent. It very much set the stage for Cast of Wonders' 2024 Banned Books Week event. This year, our theme was Unwanted, Unheard, Challenging the Silence. We asked for stories that challenge collective silence, that show the risks and consequences of inattention and inaction. Stories that centre the voices of the silenced and unwanted. Stories that demand to be heard. These are the stories we chose. Our first Banned Books Week story is The Restaurant of Object Permanence by Beth Goder, which was first published in Diabolical Plots in April 2024. Beth Goder is an archivist and author. Over 40 of her short stories have appeared in venues such as Escape Pod, Podcastle, the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, Analog, Clarkesworld, and Horton's The Year's Best Science Fiction and Fantasy, as well as here at Cast of Wonders. You can find her online at bethgoder.com. This story is narrated by Katrin Kania. Katrin Kania is a medieval archaeologist specialising in historical textile techniques. She has written The Middle Ages Unlocked, an introduction to the English Middle Ages, together with historian and fiction writer Gillian Pollack. She also spins, weaves, knits, and blogs about all these things at palia.net. And now, we've a tale to tell.
The Restaurant of Object Permanence by Beth Goder, read by Katrin Kania. Kaja files a folder of correspondence and closes the manuscript box. She leaves the archives as the sun is setting. Her head is filled with the collection she is processing, the papers of Elgar T. Bryce, noted American biologist. For 11 years, she has worked as an archivist, arranging and describing the papers of scientists, economists, and professors. She loves the quiet of the archives, the way folders line up in a processed box, tangible history in her hands. Outside the archives, there's a strange flyer on the bulletin board. The first thing she notices is the paper, a small blue square, probably acidic, attached to the board by the thin metal line of a staple not yet turned to rust. It's an invitation to the Restaurant of Object Permanence. To go, one is instructed to eat the flyer. She pulls the paper from the board and swallows it in one bite. The Restaurant of Object Permanence is brightly lit, each table under a spotlight. Although 4 chairs surround each table, every diner sits alone. Before Kaja are 2 objects, a worn work boot and a bracelet drooping with dainty emeralds. Kaja recognizes the items immediately. She picks up the boot, Misty's favorite toy. A wave of memory washes over her, throwing the shoe which first belonged to Kaja's father, Misty's tail wagging, sunlight streaming through the oak in their backyard. The bracelet was a graduation gift from her grandmother, lost in a move a decade ago. She has not thought of these things in years, but now that they are before her, she feels tenderness for them, like light touching a place long dark. The woman at the next table has a merry-go-round figurine and a black rock. She ingests the merry-go-round, which shrinks to fit perfectly into her mouth. The look on her face is a mix of sorrow and wonder, a version of nostalgia. The door to the restaurant opens. The woman leaves. Kaja looks at the boot and bracelet, both a promise of memories renewed. Also, escape. To leave the restaurant, she must eat. Carefully, she puts both objects to the side. She has never liked limited binary choices. So little in the world reflects this structure. If this is a restaurant, she should be able to order what she wants. Book, she says experimentally. A Wizard of Earthsea appears before her. Not just any copy. She'd recognize the scratch on the cover anywhere. When she was 8, she bought the book at a garage sale and devoured it in one sitting. Since then, she has believed in the true names of things. This belief carries over to her work, where she tries to divine descriptions for archival documents. All 3 objects sit before her, waiting for her to choose. She loves them all in different ways, but she's reluctant to eat any of them. What sort of gift is the past? Is this a gift at all, or a responsibility to remember? She wonders what will happen if she orders something intangible. Determinism, she says. All these choices have made her think of free will and that competing philosophy, determinism, the idea that all our actions are predetermined, the inevitable consequences of the motion of particles tracing back to the birth of the universe. Perhaps, she thinks, determinism will manifest as a rendition of the Big Bang, some strange tableau. However, what appears is a black bow tie with a broken clasp, the one Adrian left behind in the apartment that used to be theirs. All at once, she remembers herself, at 23 years old, crushing the bow tie in her hand. Her past self is wondering how her choices have brought her to this place, and if her choices mattered at all, or if the universe had planned this all along. Her bracelet is gone, a graduation gift from her grandmother. Perhaps it had gotten mixed up with his things. In the restaurant, she picks up the bow tie, letting the silk run over her thumb. Kaja worries that if she eats this manifestation of determinism, the world will disintegrate into its component parts. She puts the bow tie aside, adding it to the archival collection of her past objects. She's tempted to order a paradox, because it is in her nature to explore the limits of a system in order to ferret out the underlying structure. But she doesn't. She refrains from ordering any other intangibles. Love, sadness, morning, noon, night, nostalgia, the feeling before falling asleep, or the bright dawning of understanding. All of her objects have been personal? What would it look like if she ordered love or grief? Would she be given Misty's collar, her grandmother's lace tablecloth, a photograph of her father? The restaurant of object permanence, she says. A model of the restaurant appears. Object permanence is the ability to remember objects when they are no longer in sight. Archival records, she thinks, are a method of object permanence for our history, a way to remember events that have disappeared from living memory. The record is a physical object, describing the intangible past. She peers into the model of the restaurant, with its tiny tables and chairs and folks' diners, with miniature artwork on the walls. In front of each diner sits a choice of objects, but the objects are obscured from Kasia, blurred like a memory. The static model cannot possibly convey the significance of those objects to the diners, the crucial choice the restaurant has on offer. But everything that can be represented is. What Kasia sees is an archival obsession with the past, with collective memory and the spaces between, the empty chairs and tables, moments undocumented in the historical records, lost now forever. These spaces are what she focuses on most, the places where things are missing. This is what she will eat. She can remember her own past without the use of objects. It is the concept of the restaurant she needs to carry with her, the knowledge that so much history has been lost, the silences in the archives. Documents tell a story, but what happens when the documents that would speak are not saved? What happens to those stories? Into her mouth goes the restaurant of object permanence. It tastes like nothing she's ever eaten. It's as if she has forgotten the words to describe taste. The door opens. In the distance, she sees the archives. She sets out toward the building. The archives will be locked now, but she will touch the pebbled walls, run her fingers in the spaces where the pebbles meet, and feel the absence there.
When I first read this story, I knew immediately that it was how I wanted to open this year's Banned Books Week event. It's a real gem of a story and does a great job of making abstract concepts tangible, but it also highlights the responsibility and power of the librarian or the archivist. We preserve our histories based on what we deem valuable, but so often this leaves gaps. Archaeologists sometimes learn more about the past from the debris of everyday life than from the items that were thought valuable at the time. And it might be a cliché, but history really is written by the victors. This story takes that awareness of what is lost or misunderstood, undocumented moments, things that we failed to or chose not to remember, and makes the emphatic point that these gaps matter, that there are stories we don't get to hear. Sometimes those gaps are loud and visible, the removal of queer content from libraries, the censorship of ideas and critical thinking from centres of education, but not always. Sometimes what's lost comes about from the subtleties of our own biases, or through the complexities of political dissent. In this piece, we're reminded to see those gaps, to listen to the silence. Join us again soon. We love bringing you the best audio fiction week after week, but we can't do it without your support. Your donations pay our authors, our narrators, our servers and our staff. Please consider supporting us with a monthly donation through either PayPal or Patreon. You can also review us on Apple Podcasts, request us on Spotify, and consider the stories we publish for award consideration. There are lots of ways you can help. Join the discussion on the EA Discord and visit on social media at Cast of Wonders. Come say hello. Cast of Wonders is brought to you by editor Catherine Inskip, assistant editor Alicia Caparasso, associate editors Rebecca Arn, Tanya Adelit, Amy Brennan, Somtoa Haysway, Kapya Cobb, Becca Miles, Ray O, Samuel Poots, Pooja Prakabaran, Emma Smales, Denise Sudell and Rin Yi. Our editorial assistant is Amy Brennan, our community manager is Denise Sudell and our audio producer is Jeremy Carter. Cast of Wonders is part of the Escape Artists Foundation, a 501c3 non-profit, and this episode is distributed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. That means you can download or listen to the episode on any device you like, but you can't change it or sell it. Our theme music is Appeal to Heavens by Alexei Nov, available from Fromo DJ or his Facebook page. Thank you for listening.